Excited to introduce our two featured readers of the evening. The Poetic Opener we'll start with Barbara Pelman. Barbara is a retired high school English teacher and poet. She has 3 published books, One Stone, Borrowed Rooms, and Narrow Bridge, and a chapbook, Aubade Amalfi. Her poems have appeared in literary journals, and in 2018, her glosa, nevertheless, won the Malahat Poetry Prize. And Barbara needs very little introduction with most of this crowd, so I will just let her come up and welcome Barbara. It can be quite unnerving to watch yourself.
Yeah. Take it way down.
There you go. Is that good?
All right. Well, yes, a night of firsts.
Is a good height for you?
Sure.
Feel it.
Does this work? You can hear me? Good. All right. So it's wonderful. I don't think, well, we've done open mic here, but I haven't really done anything more. And though you are spread out, you are here, which is just wonderful. I thought what I would do is read one poem from each of my 3 books and just give you a sense of that. And also it's kind of a funny thing to go back and go, well, I wrote this poem, 10, 15 years ago. Is it any good still? Assuming that you get better and better and better and better, which is not necessarily true, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. But anyway, so I'm going to start. And also, I'm a great lover of form poems for a number of reasons. One of the things is that there's the challenge of it, but also the paradox of it, that if you limit things, you open them up. And that limitation is in itself a freedom. What it tends to do is it moves you out of your comfort zone. It makes you think differently. And so what you are going to get tonight is a series of various form poems. The first one, from One Stone, this book, came about, the muse of this poem was my grief and anger at ex-husbands. So some of you know that sense of what that's all about. And the great joy of art is that you can kill someone and get away with it. So this is a pantoum called Flash the Red Petticoat. There's a little pun in there because my ex-husband's name is Bruce. You'll hear the pun. Flash the Red Petticoat. It's been 3 long years. Enough's enough. The grief may fade as fade it should. The way's been slow, the way's been rough. It's time to get up to no damn good. The grief may fade and fade it should. Time to bury him up to his neck. It's time to get up to no damn good. Flash the red petticoat, castanets clack. Time to bury him up to his neck. Let the ants crawl out and in. Flash the red petticoat, castanets click. High heels tap and rattle and spin. Let the ants crawl out and in. Nostrils seeping, eyeballs ooze. High heels tap and rattle and spin. Let his skin decay and bruise. Nostrils seeping, eyeballs ooze, bald head blazing, ears aflame. Let his skin decay and bruise. I'm heading off to a different game. Bald head blazing, ears aflame. The way through death is slow and rough. I'm heading off to a different game. 3 long years. Enough's enough. The great joy of a pantoum, of course, is that it's obsessive. You keep going back and back, which fit the topic. Okay, the second one from Borrowed Rooms is a fugue. So a fugue, like the musical term, is there's a repetition of a phrase or a line or a word in different contexts. And so it repeats itself in different ways. You'll see. This is called Walk On. The first time she stood, her own feet holding her, balance of knee and thigh, eyes forward, her diaper sliding perilously down, barefoot, wearing a shirt I had embroidered in the days she would lie still in a crib. The first time she knew she didn't need me to taxi her around a room. Eyes forward to where she wanted to go. The embroidered days of rest and sleep gone now. She balanced need in her perilous glance, here and here. No longer still in a crib, but standing on her own feet, marking the path embroidered with perilous ledges, a highway across winter, always forward in her balance of need and knowing. And I taxi her around in my mind, embroiders her days with my perilous love, cribbed and almost silent. My independent daughter. Okay, and the third one is a glosa. So most of you probably know the glosa. So the repetition of 4 lines that are the end of each stanza of 10 lines. So it's the 10th line. So you know in a glosa you've at least got 4 killer lines. So, and it's a kind of tribute to the writer that you're borrowing the lines from. This poem came from the years that I was visiting my daughter who was living then in Sweden. Thank heaven she's home now. But there was a lot of travel back and forth. And the 4 lines are taken from Seamus Heaney's poem Postscript. The 4 lines are, you are neither here nor there, a hurry through which known and strange things pass, as big, soft buffetings come at the car sideways and catch the heart off guard and blow it open. So wouldn't you want to take those 4 lines and do something with them? They're so great. Known and strange things. You sit at a cafe in the city where you live, your usual latte and a scone. A cloudy Sunday morning, August, a blank page. Anything can happen, or nothing. You are not on anyone's calendar, though the city is full of things to do, if you wish it. A flamenco dance in the city square, a protest march through the streets. Your thoughts full of trains and planes, visas, hotels, timetables to get you elsewhere. Amsterdam or Malmo, Stockholm or Rome. You are neither here nor there, not in Sweden with your family, nor fully here at this cafe where the leaves on the patio are brown with too much sun and the morning opens slowly. Your life is a question without an answer. Colors on a palette, crimson blends into citron, yellow softens the red, rebuilds the image you paint, sand and sea, and one dog at the water's edge. Take it slow. Your eyes a paintbrush. Follow the rhythm of tide and driftwood, not a hurry through which known and strange things pass. Like your planned trip through Europe, hustle through Germany, a brief pause in Prague, on and on as the train gulps the miles, so much, so fast, and where are you? Only a glimpse in passing, farmhouse and gardens, red tiled roofs against green hills, blue mountains in the distance. Somewhere in a village in Italy, a man plays a lute, a woman kneads bread, a vineyard, a woodshed, a trace of jasmine through the open train window as big, soft buffetings come at the car sideways. What do you want at this tail end of your life? What is still possible? Nerves tense, muscles tight in the early hours of morning. You stand at the window, your mind in Sweden, your body rooted here. The years put down layers, like rings of a tree, like paint thickening with each brushstroke, reds browning and blues blackening. And what will it take to scrape the canvas clean, open the coves of yellow, the light, unfist the hand, catch the heart off guard, and blow it open? Thank you all. So there are some books for sale, and thank you. I think the Poetic Opener idea is just so cool. And so now the warm-up band is done, and we can hear Cornelia.
Thank you, Barbara. That was so lovely. Okay. I'm going to make this microphone cooperate. Maybe. Okay. I want to make sure it stays put now. All right, Barbara, that was so delightful. What are you selling? What's the price on your books?
Oh, well, 10 each.
10 each is a steal.
It's a steal.
Beautiful. Okay, I need my notes. All right, so the moment you've been waiting for, Cornelia Hoogland. Cornelia grew up on Canada's west coast, and after many years of living in cities across Canada, has returned home. She was the 2019 writer-in-residence for the Purdy A-Frame and the Whistler Festival. Cornelia has written plays, as well as quite a few poetry books. Her recent publications include Dressed in Only a Cardigan. She picks up her tracks in the snow. I love the title of this book, even though I messed it up. It's such a cool title. I'm going to try it again. Dressed in Only a Cardigan. She picks up her tracks in the snow, from Baseline, and Cosmic Bowling with Ted Goodden from Guernica. Cornelia founded and was the artistic director of Poetry London from 2004 to 2012, and she now directs Poetry Hornby Island on the Gulf Island, where she lives with her husband Ted, a visual artist, and their dog Drummer. And I always like to try to hunt out a quote from our featured readers, so I found this one in an interview with Vanessa Shields, who was a featured reader for us last year. So I was like, oh, Vanessa. Cornelia said, when asked about sort of her writing process, I write on my feet. That is, wherever I am, there is my writing self. I turn phrases I hear, observations I make, into first lines of a poem, almost ongoingly. This makes my life incredibly interesting to me. Then there's the time to focus, to gather, to shape and hone. That's a very different process from the journaling, writing down the interesting images and lines I see and hear. So I love that. I write on my feet. I feel that's a great line and something I can aspire to. So please welcome Cornelia.
Thanks very much, Zoe and Leanne and Russell Books and Planet Earth and Barbara for opening and for the first readers. Really, really enjoyed your poems.
Oh, there's some water behind you.
Okay, that's really great. Thanks. Don't throw yourself away on the world, but wait. I meet myself every day in these hexagrams. My impatience, my striving. I wake early and write in bed. My sleeping partner, my dog. More and more I feel ripples of tenderness toward me in my efforts to find balance, like learning to bowl all those gutter balls. I'll let you uncrinkle yourself there. So I do find my poems on my feet, but I also meet myself in hexagrams, and I'll explain them in a minute, and I also meet myself in my poems. And so if tonight's reading would have a title, it would be Holding a Space for Reflection. And that might seem a little bit odd because, you know, for the past 2 years, we've some of us, not all of us, not those with young families for sure, but some of us have had more time. And so you would think that there would be all kinds of time for reflection, but it doesn't turn out to be that neat and tidy, does it? Nevertheless, poets do that. We do hold a space for reflection because we meet ourselves in language. And that is a pretty interesting thing to think of doing, to meet yourself in language. And not just meet yourself in language, but also to meet the world there. So here I am at the beginning of the pandemic, meeting myself in language. The pandemic, when it hit, alarmed everyone everywhere. The loudest amongst us clamored to be vindicated, better understood. But as a species, we sensed we'd arrived at the beginning of awareness. I polished my shoes for the first time in 10 years while listening to Beethoven online. What kind of virus is that? Isn't that interesting? The loudest amongst us clamored to be vindicated, better understood. Honk, 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 honk. Yeah. Yeah, I think about that because I think, you know, that space for reflection, I've been thinking a lot about the freedom convoy. First of all, freedom is such a strange word to be using for what they're doing. I mean, there's no slavery in sight that I can see, but like how do people decide to make an action like that? Where is the reflective space there? And, you know, I also wonder who's looking after the children. Anyways, I once again found myself in a kind of national situation in 2003, and that's going a ways back. But you might remember that was when Chrétien was wondering whether we should declare war on Iraq. I was in central Canada at the time. Diversity was the surprise. East End protesters mingled with suits on arena steps across Canada in the cold in 2003. Canada in a tug of war. Should we join the invasion, declare war on Iraq? In hand-knit, hipster, indigenous, and religious dress, our collective no. Jack Layton and hot coffee kindling our resolve. So to go back to that idea of meeting ourselves in language, you know, it's what poets do, and what poets have always known, and they've used poetry for just that, and for survival, that we use our imaginations as space in which to create a life other or alongside the one that sits in the bus at night, or any of the other situations that we heard about tonight. So it's that creating that alongside space that is so incredibly valuable in poetry. So let me tell you a little bit about this book. These are 64 poems, and this book is a collaboration with the visual artist Ted Goodden, and with the I Ching. And I don't know how many of you know about the I Ching. Some of you will, some of you won't. It's a very ancient text, one of the earliest known texts, and it was written in China with 3 collaborators, King Wen and Confucius and Lao Tzu. And King Wen remarkably was in prison when he was writing his entry into this compilation, this text, this palimpsest, together, the result of their work is 64 readings. Now, they're called hexagrams, but what they really are is a reading. And it actually continues to amaze me how appropriate the readings are. But the poems that came as a result of it, so I would have, you can't really see it here, but there's 64 photographs of his sculptures alongside the poems. And I would have one of Ted's sculptures, and I would have the I Ching for the hexagram. So whatever one of the 64 human situations, which is what each hexagram is, a different human situation. And I would have my own poetic musings, like what you're being asked to write, like look at a newspaper report, or look out the bus window, or you know, think about women quilting, or whatever. So that was new for me, and sort of like Barbara, it's a form poem. My poems are also 6 lines, because that's what hexagrams are. They are 6 lines. And it is really wonderful writing within constraints. Yeah. I have another poem. There was one that I'll read for Barbara. It's number 55, Abundance, because it echoes your poem. The first time my baby slid on her bum away from me toward the world, I scooped her back into my arms. She howled, arced her spine skyward. Scarcity is the kingdom where people take from a sense of lack. The opposite of the backpacker in the bus terminal, I see is okay with empty arms. Annie Dillard says, time is ample, its passage sweet. So I really value the image of King Wen writing this text in prison, because he was very aware of the limitations of his own power, and he writes from that position. Again, so different from the Freedom Convoy. It's like polar opposites. And I'm not even being judgmental. I'm just being interested in how we are taking up these really difficult questions today. So King Wen had a sense of his own kingliness at the same time as his own powerlessness. And I guess a poet could use both. I guess it's good to have a sense of our royalty. I remember when I was a young, I think I told this to the women in my memoir group the other day, or somewhere I said this, that I told my teacher in grade 6 that I had blue blood. I have no idea what I meant, but that was... I stake my life on what I believe. Maybe I'm going crazy, but in that craziness is something to claim. Huck Finn, on the raft with Jim, refused to turn in his friend. Huck knew full well he'd go to hell for defying the law. Rough water below, but I stand tall as possible. Hoist my inadequate self to my shoulder, lift my eye. Okay, so this is for the Olympics. I was listening, driving up here today, I was listening to an athlete speak about the incredible difficulty of preparing for a sport, and the nervousness and the self-doubt, and I thought, gee, I can really relate to that athlete. I'm going to do a reading tonight, a live reading after not having done that for so long. And then I realized, oh yes, they're going to be performing in the Olympics. That's the world stage. But still, you know. So I don't think they're playing baseball at the Olympics, because it is the Winter Olympics. I do know that. At birth, we're turned loose into a moving field, endless adjustments as we position and reposition ourselves, like geese in erratic flight, seeking permission to land. The desire to belong, this flock movement that so engages. The line drive when it comes at you hard. The thwack when it hits your glove. The second book that I'm flogging tonight is Dressed in Only a Cardigan. She picks up her tracks in the snow. And I think that the industry that produces chapbooks in Canada is to be so congratulated, because it's such a thriving adventure. There are so many tiny presses, and if you're looking for a place to collect a sweet group of poems and submit it, I urge you to do that. This one is made by Baseline Press by the most amazing Karen Schindler. She has just celebrated her 10th anniversary with her press. Just beautifully produced. This is a Ontario artist who made the cover for this, and these are prose poems. And this is also a lovely thing about form and process and work of a poet. I thought that I should start to write poems about my mother because she was in her 90s. And so I didn't have a clue. Anybody who writes about their mother, I don't know how you do it, because it's really, really, really difficult, as anybody who has tried it knows. But when I thought about my mother, I immediately thought about water. Water was the main image. And she was born in the Netherlands, and as you may or may not know, much of the Netherlands is built on reclaimed land from the North Sea. So they know about dikes and polders and windmills and dredging and draining. Well, my parents landed in the Sumas Prairie, which is not too far from here. And anyone who was paying attention to the news, I could enter that contest myself, will know that the Sumas Prairie experienced incredible flooding last November. Well, that's where my parents landed when they arrived in Canada. At that time, it had already been made into land, but the news in November accentuated the fact that Sumas Prairie was once a lake, a very large, messy lake with irregular borders. Anyways, I am in the process of writing a memoir about my mother, but I'm really grateful for this book of prose poems for helping me start. And all I did was try to take tiny, seemingly insignificant moments in her life and describe them. I would say it was as simple as that. So I'll read two of these. And the water theme begins here. O Lord, the terror of beginnings. Rope around her middle, her body flies through the air, hits the water. A slapping sound, waves in all directions. Her father runs the length of the backyard that butts up against the canal. He shortens the rope when his daughter doesn't emerge and pulls her, sputtering, in. Wilhelmina learns to swim this way. Hand braiding hand, she learns to climb the rope, now tied to a tree, scrabble the banks where silver eels nest. Her father catches them live until he has a bathtub full. They're a delicacy. Carries them slithering in his shirt tails to the house. The water below the girl on the banks is dark, and hand to her pounding heart glistens silver. Will she jump? One wave nudges the next, and the next down the canal, outward to the Rhine River, the North Sea, the Atlantic. The Atlantic is as far as she knows. Wilhelmina exits childhood tethered with father, God, even strangers, her reliable ropes. Grabbing fistfuls of air, the girl leaps, empty and bright. Well, my mother died in just like the day that the pandemic was discovered in the Chinese province. I'm forgetting where it was first located or said to be located. Anyways, the day that the news came out about that was actually the day she died. So she skipped the pandemic. She said, no, I don't think so. So she always said she was going to heaven. She was so sure. And so I thought, well, Emily Dickinson wrote a poem from heaven, so I'm going to try to. Wilhelmina in heaven. She's just arrived. Stands stock still, though no more pain. She could walk Prospect Lake. The sky is blue. Her son, husband, mom and dad, her 12 siblings. She's long imagined seeing them again, but she's alone. Not quite ready after a careful life for reunion's blue milk. She's a girl on the banks of the Rhine. She's in church, hymnal open. 27 years old and seated 3 rows ahead of the man staring hard at her, the one she'll marry. Together they'll immigrate. Clunky English words, Salt Lick, Scarecrow, say them and she's back pegging bed sheets on the clothesline at Barrow's farm. Big white sails in a prairie sky. She's on Vancouver Island where she turns 41 in a suit she's tailored, now 45 and dressing for church, dabbing eau de cologne on her collarbone. She's 52, 63, 80, 87, and 95. She prays before each meal, reads her Bible. Why no welcoming committee? No tea, no pot, and it's quilted cozy. Not a single saucer. She thinks about her own Royal Albert, Old Country Roses, the complete set. She'd have prepared. Spread out linen, lace, silver platters. This is why. There is nothing to ready or tidy or polish, nowhere to be. What calendar? The sky is in itself complete. Is airbrushed the lavender of Christmas Hill? Is June spent strawberry picking with her girls at Mitchell's farm, high above the Salish Sea? Is the 70-foot poplars along Blenkinsop she'd never noticed until this hearty whistling, hundreds of red-winged blackbirds unbranched in a flurry of wing tremor, a silver shaking, a turning, birds tossed like leaves where the road bends. Her word for this was, look. Thank you very much.